Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Arkadin, and today we're going to talk about simple gearing and how to do it at least pretty well. So grab your pumpkin spice lattes, boys, because we're about to get basic. So first of all, let's give credit where credit is due. Thank you guys, K Gaming, for putting out this particular just resource right off the bat for people to take a look at. I feel like it gives a pretty accurate depiction. I think there's one thing that I saw in here that was a little bit weird, but otherwise it's very easy, I think, to formulaically be able to take a look at kind of what's going on here. So you've got your left side gear and you've got your right side gear. Your left side gear, when people refer to that, they are talking about your weapon, your helmet, and your armor. Those are going to be the first three things you see on this particular chart. You'll notice they can only have flat attack, flat health, and flat defense. That is their only main stat. That is just a common thing that's going to exist on any piece, no matter what you get, no matter what it's set. None of that stuff matters. This is what's going to be on it. Your necklace has the ability to roll the same as both ring and shoes, except for the biggest difference being that necklaces can also do crit percentage and crit damage percentage. Rings also do the similar stat rolls, except the differences being effectiveness and effect resist. So those are great places to get extra effectiveness or extra effect resist if you need them in your kit. And then also you'll notice in shoes, the biggest difference that it has that the other ones don't between the necklace and the ring is speed. And you're going to find on a lot of characters that speed as a main stat is incredibly important, because it's one of the few places pre-90 gear where you could even get 40 speed at all on anything. But now with 90 gears being like an upgrade on the boots, you can actually get a free easy 5 speed to 45 speed right off the bat, which is amazing. So because of those main things kind of being where they are, some of the things that you can consider when it comes to weapons, helmets, armor, necklace, rings, shoes, what do I want to put on each individual character? I think it's important that we note all the different things that can be on these. So as a weapon, right, you're not actually able, like if you look at the note down the bottom, you're not actually able to get defense or defense percentage on your weapon. So if you're trying to build a tanky character, note that you can't get HP and defense on your weapon. That's just not a possibility. That's not one of the things that rolls with it. And then also, like other side, you're trying to build a damagey character. In general, you're not able to get attack or attack percentage on your chest piece. So keep those things in mind. That's going to be, again, across the board substats that aren't going to be able to exist. But let's take a step back here for a second and kind of talk that through. So now that we know what can be on a piece of gear, how do I build these characters? We're going to talk about 4 ways to do that. Number 1, am I building a tank or a healer? Number 2, am I building a damage dealer? Number 3, a speedy character, what's that look like? And number 4, how do I build a hybrid character? So let's kick it off. So tanks and healers, how do I want to gear these guys? Couple different things that are important right off the bat. Your main substats and main stats that you're looking for on a tank or a healer are going to be health and health percentage, defense and defense percentage, effect resist, and speed. Now, if you had to add a 5th, effectiveness, because a lot of times for a lot of tanks, they've got provokes, they've got potential stuns, they've got whatever their S1 ability may be, you might get a little bit of extra benefit out of that. Similarly with healers, you're going to look at a pretty similar stat priority. So how does that look on a practical level when I'm actually trying to gear the character? Well, for Armin here, you're looking at, I don't even have a secondary set. I should try and go for 2 health sets to get at least a little bit of extra health, because I already have the speed set met with just 4 pieces. But based on stats, I ended up going with the pieces that I did. So with Armin, we're looking at a piece that has effect resist, speed, health. The only thing that's not amazing on this, crit hit chance. We've got health, effectiveness, defense percentage, and speed. All of these are pretty darn good. Similarly, you're going to see similar stats here. Again, effect resist rolled high, health rolled high, speed's on there. It's low, but whatever, it's fine. And then you've got a little bit of effectiveness there as well. Again, remember, left side gear always has the same stat priorities: attack, health, and defense as your main stats. So even just plus 15ing those just to get them up there, these 2 pieces are vitally important, because you're getting a lot of flat stats out of these 2 when it comes to healers and tanks. It's just a big deal making sure that these are plus 15 pretty quickly. Now we look at the right side, things that you're going to find important to be your main stats for your necklace, for your ring, and for your boots. Necklaces and rings, Honestly, you're going to want to go health percentage as much as you possibly can for both healers and for tanks, because the more healing you have, you get more healing out of having more health percentage a lot of times, but mostly you're going for the tank ability. You want a lot of ability to survive with both of these characters, because if they're surviving, they can then heal the people that you need to survive. So that's huge. So making sure that you have health percentage on both of these if you can. If you can't, like, defense percentage is still okay, especially if you get like a sub-stat roll that rolls like well into health. Totally fine. These are the types of things where you might have an effect resist ring that could exist, and that could be okay depending on where you need set yourself up stat wise. Again, keeping it basic, health percentage, super good here. You can't go wrong. And then when it comes to boots is the weird one when it comes to main stat, because in a lot of cases, especially with healers, you want them to at least, you're not going to go the fastest in the game, but you need them to at least take turns. Otherwise, they're not going to rotate through their skills. So having an easy 40 speed just from having it on your boots is a big deal. So going with a speed main stat boot, and then as well, you'll notice having a speed set, which is at least 4 pieces of this speed set here as well. Really important. Other ways that you can build, you could also go much chunkier, a lot less speed. I would not suggest it as much on your healers, but you can do it with tanks. And sometimes you'll see tanks that will be built having like a health percentage boot as well, just to give themselves that extra stat. And they'll try and make up for the speed in substats. Again, that's totally fine. You're just guaranteed 40 speed if you go with a speed boot, as opposed to getting your speed elsewhere where it's going to probably be less and not quite as impactful. So next on the list, we have damage dealers. Damage dealers, what are their main stats? Well, main things that you want: attack percentage, crit hit chance, and crit hit damage. Now, there's a 4th and a 5th that are semi-interchangeable, and both of them have their usefulness. Just depends on the character that you're using, if they have debuffs or what have you, or if they just want to be a little bit faster. But speed is one of them, and effectiveness are those 2 that are semi-interchangeable depending, but the big 3 are attack percentage, crit hit chance, and crit hit damage. So what do we have here with Shermia? You'll notice her attack is over 5,000, which is humongous. Her crit hit chance is 85%. You really want that to sit between 85% and 100% on any of your big damage dealers, because you need them critting always. They need to crit always. Crit hit chance being closer to 100% is absolutely necessary, especially with damage dealers. And then crit hit damage, you're going to try and get as much as you possibly can without sacrificing too much attack and too much crit hit damage. Either way, they sort of balance each other. You're trying to find a good combination between those two. So how does that look? If I'm looking at pieces of gear, well, that means for my weapon, I'm looking for attack percentage, crit hit chance, and crit hit damage. My helmet, I'm looking for all of the above as well. Again, speed and effectiveness, super good. When it comes to chest pieces, you can't actually get attack percent. It's just not possible. So one of the things that I have on this one is we were okay with the health, but again, speed, crit hit chance, crit hit damage, amazing. Again, as we said with like tanks before, you want to make sure that you actually have your weapon plus 15, probably more importantly than some of the other pieces, at least first, just because you're getting a lot of flat attack damage there, which is huge. Extra flat attack is never going to hurt you, because in this case, attack is a big deal for you. Now we swap over to the right side gear, right? Now we're over here. Things that are important. If you don't have 100% crit, or you're not getting close based on your substats on the rest of your gear to getting there, you can go crit hit chance on this neck piece, but ideally you're going crit hit damage. Crit hit damage is such a hard stat to get a lot of, and so having it as a main stat, especially on the 75 piece or higher, you're getting like 65%, and then if you're getting something up to like plus 90, you're able to take that up to like 70% crit hit damage, which is humongous amounts of additional crit hit damage. So if you can get that in the necklace, perfect. That's what you're hoping for. In your ring, you're almost exclusively looking for attack percentage. Every once in a while, you'll see somebody, depending on the character, if you needed a lot of extra effectiveness, maybe they'll get that in their ring. But really, otherwise, you're mostly going for attack percentage, because you can't get crit hit chance and you can't get crit hit damage from there. So as an attacker, attack percent is going to be your number 1 best stat on a ring. And then, depending on if you needed more speed or if you needed more damage, in the case of Shermia, I don't need speed. Speed's not going to help me. She's already slow as dirt. I'm going to actually add an attack percentage boot on top of it, just to really maximize that damage on her. If you needed the speed, you could go with a normal speed but not necessary in these cases for a lot of these damage dealers. These types of characters are 100% built to be just the mass amounts of chunked damage that you're looking for, whether it's PvP or PvE. These are going to be the characters that are actually going to do the damage. They're going to be a lot squishier than the tanks and the healers, but that's why you're prioritizing so much damage to be able to make that happen. So next on the list, we have our speedy characters. These are a little bit complicated, so depending on the type of character you're building will depend ultimately on what you end up picking for substats. And for your necklace and your ring, theirs can get a little bit different depending on the character. But let's talk about those main stats and how that priority looks. Number one, speed. Speed needs to be on every piece of gear that you have on the character. If you look at my Oxlots, he has a 4-piece speed, so he's getting the speed there naturally. That's a given. You need the speed set if you're going to build a very fast character. That's a guarantee. But you also need, there's some speed on this weapon. There's speed on this helmet. Speed on this chest piece. Speed on this ring. Necklace. Speed on this ring. And then also 40 speed on your boots. You need at least the 40 speed. Again, you'll probably upgrade to 90. Anything that's going to be fast, these are going to be like actually kind of priorities for taking things up to 90, depending on if you're building speed comps. That actually depends. All that said, you want speed on everything. Speed is so important. Now, after you have a high amount of speed, your question is, okay, what kind of character am I playing? So if I'm playing Oxlots, if I know that my entire purpose of this character is to boost other characters, because my S2 just boosts them, I actually don't need anything more than just speed. I can have other stats are nice, but really, especially with Oxlots, your biggest thing is probably, I want low critical hit chance, so probably don't put a crit necklace on as best as you can. In the case of Oxlots here, we have a health one, because we want to keep his crit hit chance low, because we don't want to proc ML Kens, we don't want to proc a lot of extra stuff if he has to use his S3, but that's honestly turn 2. He's a turn 1 character. You want to be able to turn 1, get your damage dealer doing damage, and already taking somebody off the map. Different story would be if you were building, like, let's say Basar. Totally different situation. He needs speed still as like a main stat, which is still super important, and he actually has lower speed, so it becomes even harder to get him to high speeds. But he needs really high speed. But most of the time when you're playing with Basar, or if you're playing with Cerise, or other characters that may synergize with like lots of crit on lots of AoE, I actually would want to get pretty high crit hit chance on my Basar because it would boost my CDOM forward. Also with Basar, effectiveness is super important because I want to make sure that I'm landing my unbuffable debuff and making sure that my debuffs for my S2 are actually happening. So his stat priority is going to be speed still number 1, but also can I get a little bit of effectiveness and can we get a little bit of extra stats? Basically, you're looking for those extra stats. It's super important to have maybe that extra crit depending on if you want it. Again, you don't even need the crit. It's only if you're using CDOM that's super important, but you really want to make sure that your effectiveness is there so that your debuffs are being landed. Now, there's one more type, at least that comes to mind on a basic level that's super important, and that would be your assassin type characters. As you can see, I don't have a super well geared assassin character, but things that are important for Assassin Coley or Assassin Sid or Mirsa, or things that are going to be super important. Speed, once again, they need to be going faster than like everybody else. Thankfully, a lot of these characters have pretty high base speed, which is really good. Awesome, that's sweet, so I'm naturally a little bit ahead of the curve. Yes, except that your substats are wildly important as well. In the case of an assassin, you still want very high crit hit chance. You want as much crit hit damage as you can possibly get. And then you also have this fourth side thing that requires you to get attack as well. And you can't not have attack, otherwise your Assassin Coley or Assassin Sid does nothing. So similarly, very important. These ones are going to be a lot harder to gear. I would say if you're a new player and you're trying to decide like, man, I've got this really cool Assassin Coley or this Assassin Sid that I really want to build because I've seen so many good players like using them. It is a good character. It has its place. It's going to be a lot harder to gear because you're no longer just focused on speed. You're focusing also on crit hit chance, crit hit damage, and attack. Trying to get those as all basically substat additions is a lot. It's very difficult, especially when you're dealing with having to have speed too. Finally on the list today, number 4, we have hybrid characters. These can be some of the most frustrating characters to build, but also some of the most rewarding characters when they're built well. The hard thing about hybrid characters is that they require like every stat, and you're looking for pieces that have rolled well in every stat, and then you're combining them in. Let me show you on my martial artist Ken like an example of kind of what this looks like. So this is kind of weird, but normally you're going to want to have like your attack stats, your attack, your crit hit chance, your crit hit damage, your speed, your effectiveness. Those are going to be your attack stats. And then you've got your defense stats, which are HP percentage, defense percentage, effect resist, also speed, and maybe some effectiveness. And you're trying to say like, I need all of these stats to be semi-effective and to be the most effective I could possibly be. But how do I do this well? So basically, these are the types of pieces that just rolled well across the board. So you look at this weapon here. It has crit hit chance that rolled high, health pretty decent, attack pretty decent, and effectiveness. Okay, it's a decent piece across the board. We'll take it. You'll also notice that I actually got the crit hit set here as well. I also went immunity set. And then we also got a defense set as just like an added bonus. And I'm going to show you the rest of these pieces of gear, and then we're just going to kind of look at these stats here for a second. So his 88 helmet, tons of defense roll, decent attack roll, crit hit damage and crit hit chance. I think like basically got like almost no rolls into them at all. But that's okay. There's still like stats that we want to use because we still do want to get really high crit hit chance and crit hit damage on the character. We just have to kind of sacrifice where we can. This 88 piece, really high health, really high defense, pretty good crit hit chance as well. And the speed wasn't too bad. Although I will say the speed is probably the least important thing on my martial artist Ken, just due to the rest of his stats needing to be so important. We do need a crit hit damage necklace because despite all other things, even if my crit hit chance isn't all the way up, the critical hits, when they hit, they need to hit hard. So we've got a crit hit damage necklace that also, as you can see, has both health and attack percentage and crit hit chance and effectiveness. Kind of a weird mixed bag there as well. This again rolled really well, but it has attack percentage on a defense set with high health rolls, high defense rolls, some crit hit damage, and then also pretty high flat health rolls as well. So again, very bruisery, but very like mixed bag. It's not, it sort of hits all the pieces. And then you've got this immunity set that actually just rolled pretty well across the board. But again, it's immunity with a health percentage boot, which again, this is like the opposite of what we've talked about with every other kind of building. Because why would I want a health percentage boot with an attack percentage ring and a crit hit damage percentage necklace? Well, let's take a look. I'm basically taking all of the stats and all of this amalgamation of how they all came together, and we're trying to hit like certain thresholds. That's going to be your hybrid. So with martial artist Ken, and I've had even mixed opinions on even my ML Ken. Is he in a good spot? Is he in an okay spot? I would say he's probably more in an okay spot. He could probably afford to lose a little bit of health and a little bit of defense to gain at least a little bit more attack or a little bit more crit hit damage, or maybe even just a little bit more crit hit chance to be able to get that to get more crits across the board. The nice thing about him is he does crit on his S2 when the passive procs, and he gets to kind of like hit somebody back. So you're not as worried about the crit hit chance there, but I've seen some people go with like higher effect resist builds on him. I've heard of people saying like if you're not going to get really high effect resist, you go like almost nothing. The point of this is this. You've got characters like Charles, MLK, Alencia, characters that require like every stat in the book to be even remotely viable. These types of builds are actually pretty difficult for new players to build. And that's okay. No one's expecting your ML Ken to be a god tier ML Ken unless you're honestly a pretty amazing player right off the bat, and like you happen to get just the luck of the pulls to kind of roll in your favor. If you look though, I have under 4K attacks. We have decent attack. We have almost 1500 defense, which is actually pretty high, even for like a tank or healer standards. Like that's not too bad. The health is almost 17k, which is for a bruiser actually on the high end. A bruiser usually sits anywhere from like 13 to 16k. So to be closer to the 17k mark is actually a little bit beefier. My speed is down, but again, I'm here for the counterattacks on this character, so that's okay. It's not as important. My crit hit chance is 82%. I would love for that to be a little bit higher so we can maximize those crit hit chances, but not at the ability of having to sacrifice having any crit hit damage. And to get that crit hit damage at all, I didn't have it on like every other piece, so I had to go with the crit hit damage necklace. And then the effectiveness was sort of like yeah, we'll take whatever we can get here. Hybrid builds are necessary. Sometimes with these hybrid builds, you actually can't get a lot of like sets completed. You're more going for the stats on the pieces, so keep that in mind. So yeah, hybrid characters, there they are. So all in all, what did we learn today? Basically, how to gear several different types of characters, how those stat prioritizations kind of work on each individual piece, and kind of where to at least get a basic start when gearing your characters. Keep this in mind. You want to make sure to have your best gear on the characters you're using the most. You'll notice a lot of people have characters like SSB built, Angelic Montmorency. They're sort of like staple characters. They work in your Wyvern content, raid content, Guild War offenses, Guild War defenses. Now, are they perfect? No, but these types of characters are going to give you a strong kickoff point where you can use some of the little bit of gear that you have to start, and they'll be able to actually sort of like springboard you forward so that you can eventually diversify and spread your pool out a little bit further. And if you have any questions about this kind of stuff, again, we appreciate all the time that you guys like, comment, and subscribe here. We're so grateful for this platform. It's an amazing place to be. All that said, we do spend a lot of time on Twitch. That's our main platform because it's so much community based. And it's me and my wife, Katie Bell. We have a blast, and the people in the chat are so helpful. So even if you're not able to gear every single thing today, there will be many people that would love to, including myself, help you out if you want to join us on any of those days on stream. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Can't wait to see you guys next time. Peace, dudes.
Now.
There it is. Purple right off the bat. Purple right off the bat. Let's go. Let's freaking go. Come on, 5-star me. Little boy. Fudge yeah. Are you kidding me? Dude, this is ML Haste. Bro. That is why you Covenant.